Hi there guys, it's Martyn here, and welcome to my Queen vinyl album collection video. So I'm quite a big fan of Queen, and when I started collecting records around 2014, getting the Queen albums was something I had to do as soon as possible. Fair to say I managed to amass most of these within about a 6-month period. Obviously Queen were very successful, their albums aren't that hard to track down on vinyl, and price-wise I got most of these at a pretty decent price. Because this was just before the big vinyl revival, I would argue. So some of these now will probably go for a bit more price-wise, but I managed to get in there at the right time. But I'll go individual as we get to them, so let's start where it all began, with the album simply titled Queen. So here it is, the first album, as I said, just called Queen, released in 1973, and this cover art, I like it. It's all the purple hue. I mean, it's quite iconic to fans now. And let's have a look on the back. You got a bunch of photos from them there. And so you've got Keep Yourself Alive, which was their first, it didn't chart necessarily, but it got an airplay on the Old Grey Whistle Test, if I remember. It was a popular live song they did. And of course, right down the bottom, Seven Seas of Rye, ... So yeah, it's an early version of that song, which you'll see on the next album too. But yeah, let's quickly have a look at the record itself. So here's the actual record, again with the Queen moniker, copyright 1973, and yeah, this is the standard EMI logo for their records at the time in the 70s. Nothing too much else to say. It's in very good condition. I don't know if you can see there, but it plays like an absolute dream. Also down the bottom here you've got the credits like Freddie Mercury, Brian May, Deacon John, or John Deacon, and Roger Meadows Taylor, and you got a little bit of extra information there. See right down at the bottom there, and nobody played synthesizer. I think this was a shoot back about what was going on in music at the time. A lot of people were using synths, and Queen didn't. So yeah, the first album, a nice little touch point. Now I paid about £5 for this back in 2014. First print editions or 70s editions go for quite a lot more now. I recently saw one for about £20–25, so if you can find this for cheap, then I'd definitely recommend picking it up. Now the follow-up album, Queen 2, and this pose is obviously amazingly iconic. This is from the Bohemian Rhapsody video, which actually isn't on this album, that came later. This is one of those strange gatefolds from the 70s, there's the Queen logo, where it actually flips open, like so. There we go. So let's have a look down there. Oh, there you go, side white and side black, and Seven Seas of Rye is back down there. So yeah, Seven Seas of Rye is on here, everyone knows that song. Deacon John is now John Deacon. And nobody played synthesizer. Again, a little running joke there, as you can see. Also available on cassette and cartridge. Oh, how retro. And there is another picture of the four of them. So let's have a quick look at the record itself. Now, despite saying side white and side black, they are, again, the standard EMI format. My edition says copyright 1974, and I can't see any signs of it saying it was reprinted. So I'll assume this is one of the original prints. So, but let me know if there ever was a Queen 2 vinyl release where there was literally a black and a white side, because that'd be very interesting. So overall, yeah, I find this quite similar to Queen 1 in terms of how much I like it. Love the artwork though. Again, got this for about a £5. I think this was from a car boot. However though, sadly, this has gone up in price whenever I've seen it. But if you can find it for cheap, pick it up. Now the third album, also released in 1974, is Sheer Heart Attack, and there is another cover that has gone down in history. Let's have a flick to the back, see what we got. So we have Brighton Rock, which was heard in the film Baby Driver, Killer Queen, which was their first major hit. Seven Seas of Rye did well, but Killer Queen was out the water. Now I'm Here also did very well. In the Lap of the Gods they did a lot of their live shows as well. Bring Back That Leroy Brown I found quite funny. And there's another In the Lap of the Gods at the end. And there's another picture of the four of them, seemingly tied up in something, whatever that is. And if you can see right down there at the bottom, no synthesizers. Hey, keeping that up. And they've still got the Queen logo there. So let's have a look at the record. So here it is, Sheer Heart Attack. Again, copyright 1974. No signs of reprint, so I assume this is one of the original bunch. There's the Queen logo and the track list. We're still on standard EMI, because it's still the mid-70s, so we'll be seeing this for a while. Disc is in pretty good nick. Sadly, some of the sleeves on these older ones aren't in the best condition, but for records that are nearly pushing 50 years old, you're going to expect some wear and tear. Overall, I think this is Queen's, well, for me at least, their first major breakthrough album. It's got the good tunes, it solidifies their sound, and you start to see some of their personalities that we'd go on to know for the rest of their career. So if you're going to start anywhere early-wise and you can't maybe afford Queen 1 and 2, get Sheer Heart Attack. Again, I picked it up for a couple of pounds at a car boot sale. It hasn't gone as high as some of the others, but if you see it cheap, get it. Now here's another landmark album for you. This is Queen, A Night at the Opera from 1975, featuring a variation on their logo there. Very colourful, and on the back you have all the production credits, and you also have the song list there. And some key ones here, you've got You're My Best Friend, if you can see that there, it's all in this fancy writing. They have Bohemian Rhapsody, which of course hit #1. It was a very revolutionary song, it's still played today, yada yada yada. Everyone loves Bohemian Rhapsody, it's hard not to. And God Save the Queen, because, you know, gotta be patriotic. And there's a lovely, strange image there. Yeah, very enticing, eh? All titles composed, arranged, and performed exclusively by Queen. How novel. Let's open this up and have a look. So this is another gatefold, and you've got all the lyrics in it here, which was very common at the time. Still is common in vinyls, actually. Pictures of the four of them there. And does it have the... Yep, there you go. No synthesizers, exclamation mark. So let's have a look at the record and see if we've got any variations. Just looking at the record sleeve, you've got more pictures of them from their live gigs. There you go. We have a now unique and very iconic Queen album, The Night at the Opera. This is beautifully pressed on this vinyl. I think this is actually one of my top 5 favourite actual vinyl images of all time. It just fits so wonderfully well. And it was a nice break for form, makes it stand out. And this album got a lot of buzz, mainly because of Bohemian Rhapsody. But as this disc is in fantastic condition, it's a joy to listen to every single time. Again, I managed to pick this up from a £5. I wonder if you're noticing the same trend. I did get a lot of these from the same sellers. As this has Bohemian Rhapsody on it, it tends to jack up the price. Again, if you can avoid the back to black remasters and go for the original, which I assume this is, then you're laughing. And to follow up, you've got now a very opposite cover to Night at the Opera. You have A Day at the Races, featuring another variation on the Queen logo. This came out in 1976, produced by Queen. So that's what you got. Tie Your Mother Down, which was a good live hit they did. They have Somebody to Love, which has now become one of their most iconic. Good Old Fashioned Lover Boy was on a few compilations. Yeah, all titles composed, arranged and performed exclusively by Queen. You got some animals down there. Let's have a look on the inside. This is again another gatefold. You got a shot of them performing live, and there's the logo on the drum. More lyrics, 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 and is it there again? No synths again. Short on this time, but yeah, 1976. We are 5 albums in and still no synthesizers. Good on you, lads. Right, let's have a look at the record. Just another look. You've got the 4 lads on the sleeve there. Nothing on that side, just a weird sort of beige. So at first you take one look at this and think, this is really, really ugly. But when you flip it around, oh yeah, that's really nice. Again, like The Night at the Opera, that's got to be one of my top 5 images on vinyl discs ever. That just blends so well. Discs in pretty good condition, great to listen to. Moving on to 1977, you have Queen, News of the World. Can't remember where this image is from. This is from an existing thing. You have them all there in his arms. One of them's dead, apparently. On the back, you have the track list, which is upside down, so let's flip it around. Oh, one of them's falling. So you have We Will Rock You. What else do you need to say about that? We Are the Champions, again, what do you need to say? It's a fantastic song. Sheer Heart Attack is funnily enough on this instead of the actual Sheer Heart Attack. I find that quite funny. What else do we have that's I like My Melancholy Blues, that's a really nice song. Produced by Queen, assisted by Mike Stone, 1977. Available on tape. They've ditched cartridges then at this point. This does flip open. There you go, so you got that image there. Everything's falling, and doesn't that just look horrific? Oh my god, I'm surprised that it's on sale. That's terrifying. Oh, she stares right into your soul. As for the record itself, you have the Queen logo variation in the background. I don't like that as much, but I guess you've got to get the track list on somewhere. This does play very well. Again, picked it up for about a fiver. Must buy if you're a Queen fan for We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions alone, but with a string of other notable hits too. So yeah, this is definitely one you should not pass on. It's Queen, News of the World. Now you have Queen with Jazz, or just Queen, I don't know why they've repeated it. And there's a bicycle down there. This came out in 1978. Let's have a look at the back. You got the white side. They really upheld the white and black thing this time. Songs are on the side. So you've got Fat Bottom Girls. That became quite popular. Bicycle Race, of course. Let Me Entertain You. They did live for a while. Let's have a look on here. Dreamer's Ball's really nice. Don't Stop Me Now. Of course, again, that is one of their most iconic songs on this album. More of that jazz. Let's have a look. I believe this is a gatefold. It is. And so you have like their sort of setup with lots of drums by the looks of it. They've got other instruments over there giving you that big live sound. So let's have a look at the record itself. So there's them on the sleeve. Nothing on the back. Oh, I lied. There is stuff. It's the track list. And there's the usual information there. And here is the image. I quite like this, how it all correlates. I like the bicycles going all the way around. And the pink jazz. I just don't get why they called it jazz. I mean, there are some jazz influences, but I definitely don't think it's their best. Even with songs like Don't Stop Me Now, Fat Bottom Girls and Bicycle Race, etc. I'd stick to things like News of the World and some stuff from What Is To Come. Next we have The Game, which came out in 1980. As you can see there, I paid a fiver for it, as I did for Jazz, I forgot to mention. This one, the cover's not in the best condition, but you can see the four lads there. Stick on the back, very glossy, shiny cover. So you got Play the Game, another one, Bites the Dust, which is another huge one, as this crazy little thing called Love. Don't Try Suicide is interesting. Save Me was a minor hit too. So yeah, 1980. So let's have a look on the inside. Now this one is not a gatefold, but you do have the four guys here with some... I don't get where this has been taken. These two sort of look like Miami Vice with the pink sky and stuff. The back has all the lyrics and everything you could ever want. They've got like a little message there. Notice the no synths moniker. Oh, there you go. This album includes the first appearance of a synthesizer. Woo! An Oberheim OBX on a Queen album. So there you go. They'd got this far. They'd done 7 years. And finally, on their 9th studio album, they'd broken down and used them. Here's the record itself. Not the most interesting sleeve, just a plain black and white, but we've got away from that old EMI sort of template, which is nice. Yeah, pretty standard, and it plays pretty damn well. Now, I would say this album sort of demonstrates the first example of Queen's 80s sound. I know this did come out in 1980, but I think, honestly, if you're not a diehard and you don't want more, you could give this one a miss. I know it's got some great tracks, like another one, Bites the Dust, and Crazy Little Thing Called Love, but honestly, their later 80s albums, in my opinion, are far superior. But if you're a diehard, as I said, I picked it up for a fiver. If you can find it for just as cheap, go for it. Moving on to another thing Queen did in 1980, which was help make the Flash Gordon soundtrack album, the original soundtrack, music by Queen, in this very garish yellow cover. Okay, that is the worst photo ever. But that aside, you have the track list there. The Flash theme became a very popular single, and all these are really just, you know, they're just soundtracks from the movie, which is actually a very fun movie. If you haven't seen Flash Gordon, I'd recommend it. It's definitely a good laugh. Now that is how you do a record sleeve. Look at that. There's the record in the middle, so I won't get that one out. But look at the nice yellow and the red. Oh, it's just so good. And he's got his Flash t-shirt, and then you've got all the four lads here. And on the back, you have all the tracks again. And you have the hero lyrics, and you also have Flash lyrics. I like how they've done the little lightning bolt for the sound effect. That's hilarious. And so you've got all the information down here. All the thanks, etc. Blah, blah, blah. If you like Flash Gordon, or if you're a Queen completionist, then you pick this one up. But again, if you're just a casual guy and you just want the best of the best, you could pass this. Some would argue it doesn't count to like Queen's studio record. I argue it does, but hey, that's just me. But yeah, I got this for free as this was actually a Christmas gift, so that was very nice to receive on Christmas Day. But yeah, that's Flash Gordon. So next up we have Queen Hot Space, using one of the old fonts there, from 1982. And of course, this kind of pop art, the four squares, it's very iconic, not just for Queen, just in general. You see this pop up a lot. So flicking to the back, there is your track list, and the main song from this, undoubtedly, is Under Pressure, which they did with David Bowie. Again, one of their most signature. There's also a song for Lennon, Life is Real, that's quite touching. Sadly, this album, in my opinion, doesn't fare too well. They try and go for a more sort of disco or dancey sound, which by 1982 just didn't really fly on the charts, and Under Pressure did well, but this album sadly did not, and it got a lot of criticism. But let's have a look at the sleeve. Now see, I do like this. I think that's really cool cover art. That's something you'd hang on a wall. All the lyrics here, all the usual stuff, and you have all the extra details down there. Let's have a look at the disc. Okay, say what you will about this album, that's a very nice vinyl sleeve disc. This does play pretty well, but now I'm going to talk about whether you should pick this up or not. Is this the worst album of all time? No, you can find much, much worse. But is this one of Queen's weakest? I'd argue yes. I don't usually like to follow what everyone's saying, but it's not that the songs are bad, I just think they could do so much better and it doesn't really fit their mould. Props for trying, always props for trying, but it's nice to see that after this they didn't really return to this sort of style. I got this for a £5. Again, if you're a casual, you want the best of the best, then definitely avoid this, but you should find this pretty cheap. I don't see it going for much, because I think the general consensus is it's not one of the best, so it's not worth much. So if you're after it, you should be able to find it. If you're not, avoid it. So now we have Queen the Works from 1984. There's the four boys. Now, fun fact, this is actually my parents' copy of the album. When they first got out their vinyls in our house, when I was interested in them, this was one they had. So this is definitely an original from 84. You've got all these work cogs in the background, and you've got Radio Gaga, which was a huge hit. Tear It Up, they did live for a while. It's a Hard Life was successful. I Want to Break Free had a very controversial video, because, you know, they were all dressed up as women, but it's now hilariously iconic, and everyone copies it. Hammer to Fall was a semi-successful single. And Is This the World We Created, I think, is a very beautiful short song sung by Freddie, and it's, if you haven't listened to it, I'd just give it a quick Google or a YouTube, because it's very beautiful to listen to. This album sleeve isn't the most interesting. You got some notes there, and you got all the lyrics and stuff, but no funky picture, so let's have a look at the disc. Sadly for me, the disc doesn't do much for me either. I do like the gold of the band name and the album, but yeah, it's alright, but I think it could have done with a bit more work. The disc itself is gorgeous, it plays like a dream. My parents are very good at preserving their vinyl records, so I need to remember to do the same. But yeah, Queen the Works, here's the disc. Now we have Queen, A Kind of Magic from 1986, and these little characters are hilarious. I love how they're drawn, particularly on Freddie, and Brian May's quite funny too. It's really nice they went for a quirky style. On the back, the design is even more funky, and you do have the titles here. They're very hard to read because they're sort of spruced everywhere, but it'll be clear on the vinyl itself. This is a gatefold, so as with gatefolds, let's have a look. You got even more bizarre artwork. Just look at this. Look how insane this is. Goodness me. Makes you wonder what was going on. I know it's magic and etc., but this is beyond crazy. Now, a lot of this music was used for the movie Highlander. Highlander was a semi-successful movie, but, you know, a lot of people just know these songs on their own. Like, One Vision is very popular. Oh, no, actually, One Vision was from Iron Eagle. There you go. Kind of Magic is very popular. Friends Will Be Friends. Who Wants to Live Forever is one of my favourite Queen songs, definitely top 5. I really like Don't Lose Your Head. It wasn't a single, but it's very catchy and it's very energising, if that's a good term, so I'd definitely check out that song if you haven't heard it before. There's a shot of the four of them. And there's some more funky artwork. Let's have a look at the disc. So yeah, you got the title. Would have been nice to see some of those animations on here. I think that would have been really cool. But yeah, again, it plays very well, and it, yeah, works like a dream. Zooming on to 1989, you have The Miracle. There's the four of them again. Freddie's got rid of his trademark mustache. And this art's very bizarre, but I like it at the same time how all their four faces merge, and you can still see individual properties of them. It's quite nice. On the back, and that's just trippy as all hell. I mean, oh my god, that's so weird to stare at. Here's the track list. The Miracle was a successful single. I Want It All as well. The Invisible Man. Breakthrough. Scandal is again one of my top 5 Queen songs. Give that a listen. So let's have a look at the disc. So here are the four of them. Sadly, by this point, Freddie was starting to get a bit more ill with his condition, and sadly 2 years later it would be the death of him. There's more lyrics there. Let's have a look at the disc. Again, not necessarily the most interesting, but it's still a very good album. Sadly, this record is one of the few that doesn't play very smoothly. I have a lot of issues on, it's on the other side, but Invisible Man tends to skip a lot, that's virtually unplayable. And there's a skip in the beginning, but I did pick this up a lot cheaper. I got this for about £2 second hand, so I mean, when you're paying that price, you never know if it's going to function properly. But if you are a major Queen fan or you want to get into it, I think this is a great album. They were at the peak of their sound at this point, or they were riding high on it. I forgot to say, A Kind of Magic and The Works, these two definitely pick up, because what they develop here, they hone it with The Miracle. Finally, I have Innuendo, which came out in 1991 with this very surreal artwork. Now this I got quite recently, only a few weeks ago. I picked this up from an Oxfam shop. Sadly, I paid about £20 for it, which sounds like a lot, but with the vinyl revival these days, and this is an original from 91, you're going to start paying a bit more than you want to. And I love the artwork here. You'll see more of it when we look at the sleeves, but the artwork's beautiful. So Innuendo is one of my top 5 Queen songs, as is I'm Going Slightly Mad. I'm probably over 5 now. Headlong's very good. These Are the Days of Our Lives got to number 1. Don't Try So Hard is a lovely ballad, and The Show Must Go On is iconic. I'd even go as stretch to say this is my favourite Queen album. There's just so much quality on here. Let's have a look down there. So note it says edited versions for vinyl, because by this point CD was starting to become the big thing. The edited tracks on here, I'm Going Slightly Mad, gotta be honest, I didn't really notice. Don't Try So Hard, again, I didn't really notice. Nor The Hitman. Bijou, or however you pronounce it, I did. It was extremely short. But let's have a look at the sleeve. There's all your lyrics. You have a very interesting photo of them there. I think that's quite solemn in a way. Obviously, if months after this was released, I think 6 or 7, Freddie sadly passed away. So this was his final album he recorded when he was alive, or that we finished. And you've got the 4 of them here in sort of, you know, gestury, abstract kind of designs, which I think are great. I just love how these are sketched. Again, you sort of hang this on your wall. Let's have a look at the disc. So we've definitely moved away from the stylings of the mid-70s, but yeah, simple title, band, song list. Nothing much more to say. So yeah, as I said, this is probably my favourite Queen album, and it's one you should definitely check out if you haven't already. It's a must-own. I know you'll probably pay a bit more for it, because remember this came out when vinyls were on the decline, CDs were becoming the big thing, but if you can find a copy of this in any form on vinyl, I'd highly recommend picking it up. Quickly, I just want to talk about these two, because I have them. So here's Queen Live Killers, which is a live album from 1978 or 9, I think. What does that say? There you go, 79. So here's just some live selections of hits at the time, a lot of familiar ones we've just covered in there. This is a gatefold, and it is 2 discs, so there's a lot of photos there. So that's the Live Killers album. I do think the Live at Wembley 86 album is better. I think that's just because I like more of the Queen music from that era, which I do think has a vinyl release, albeit in much rarer quantities. But yeah, Live Killers, if you've got a couple of quid and you want more Queen, then it's not a bad album to pick up. And then this is quite the album. For a long time, this held the position of best-selling album in Britain, I think, for many years. This is just a greatest hits album, released in 1981, between The Game and Hot Space, and it just has a lot of hits from everything up to that point. You've got some songs that I think new fans to Queen won't recognise that much, like, say, Save Me, and Play the Game, stuff like that. But to be honest, most of these are fantastic, and you got the 4 of them there. So again, there's loads of these, you'll probably find that for cheap, so those are just some bonuses I wanted to talk about. Now, sadly what I do not have is Queen Made in Heaven, which was an album released in 1995, and that took recordings done by Freddie Mercury before his death, and they essentially finished them off or put them together. So a lot of people do consider it as a studio album. It did have a release on vinyl, I don't have it, I think it's quite rare, it's a lot more pricey than Innuendo. I think they did do a back to black release, but I'm not about that, so if I come across Made in Heaven for an affordable price, I'll definitely pick it up. Because there's actually a few hidden gems on Made in Heaven. I do own it on CD, I have a first run CD of that back at home, but yeah, if I find Made in Heaven, I'll pick it up to complete the set. But here at least is my collection of all the albums recorded by Freddie Mercury and put out when he was still alive. So from 1973 with Queen up until Innuendo in 1991. Apologies if this has been a really long video, but I wanted to show you guys all the Queen stuff and thoughts on the songs and which ones you should pick up. Let me know if you want to review more vinyls. I do have quite a selection. If individual vinyl reviews is something you might be interested in, please comment and let me know, because I'd love to do some of those. But thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.